Boruto evolved from being your typical prodigy to one of, if not the strongest shinobi to have ever existed. The power he now wields is not even quantifiable to a certain extent, but we can somewhat gauge where it currently scales in comparison to the other characters. Now the crazy part about this is that we haven't even gotten to the Jougan as yet, which given the lore behind its manifestation, it should make Boruto even way more powerful than he already is. So as you can see, we're getting to DBZ territories here, but it can all make sense given the correct context, which I'm here to provide. You see, this all goes back to Sasuke saying that Boruto has the potential to surpass even his father, Naruto. This potential is mainly what Sasuke focused on during their time away from the village, to the point where just a single year into his training, Sasuke believed that if Boruto went on to further master the skills he taught him, no one would be able to stand against him. This statement by itself is absolutely insane, given the fact that the threats Boruto faced at that point in time were characters that greatly surpassed Jougan, and also characters who greatly surpassed those characters. So regardless of whatever skills Sasuke was able to teach Boruto, it wouldn't make that much of a difference if the enemies greatly surpassed him in strength and power, which simply means that Boruto had to clear that gap as well. This then leads us into Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, which had Boruto casually stomping on the face of said Jougan level threat, that being Code. This character was hyped up as being unstoppable if his limiters were ever removed, only for him to get disrespected in the opening chapter. Now on a narrative level, it's pretty clear what the author is trying to imply here on a grander scale, which is that Code scales below Boruto. This is then solidified by Code getting absolutely demolished by a Boruto that isn't even using his Karma Seal. That too while Code later activated his. Now there is needed context to this which we're going to address later on in the video, but the underlying question here is why is Boruto so strong? Because not only was Boruto able to defeat above Jougan level Code, but he pretty much no-diffed Kawaki and Mitsuki while he was in Sage Mode, the same hidden power Oroshiki deemed too dangerous. He also defended the village against the Cloud Grimes, fought all 4 Shinju entities, and he did all of this in less than 24 hours, while in base. It's absolutely insane, it's crazy, which is again why we're back to the question of why is he so strong? Well, the answer to this question is genetics. You see, some lazy power scalers will tell you guys that these characters are stronger than the prior generation because that's so it's supposed to be, and that power cliffing in anime is totally normal so you shouldn't even question it. And while that may be true to a certain extent, that doesn't mean that there isn't a way to properly rationalize it. That's really just another way of saying I have no idea how to explain this in a way where it makes sense, and I don't really care to, so you shouldn't either. So that then leads to claims of bad writing when that's far from the case. So that's why I tend to go in depth in my explanations, and if I explained something before in a prior video, I'll explain it again in the current one if it's relevant to the topic at hand. And one of those concepts that keeps popping up in my videos is how Kishimoto uses genetics to determine how strong a character can truly become.
Now I see. It appears you have strongly inherited the powers of the Otsutsuki.
This takes us back to chapter 10 where Momoshiki states that Boruto carries the Byakugan blood, and then in the anime where it states that he strongly inherited the powers of the Otsutsuki. Now it's important to note that the context is somewhat different between these two scenes. In the manga, Momoshiki questions why Boruto is able to sense him, which he then deduces is due to the Byakugan blood that's flowing within his body. This makes sense since all Otsutsukis have the innate power to use the Byakugan, despite the other dojutsus that may stem from them as well. This simply means that the Byakugan is in a sense the root dojutsu of one carrying the Otsutsuki gene. Momoshiki is able to sense this within Boruto since he inherited that gene from his mother Hinata, who is a member of the Hyuga clan, thus being a descendant of Hamura Otsutsuki. So even though Boruto himself doesn't possess the Byakugan, he still possesses the gene, which then allows him to see or sense Momoshiki's current form. Now the anime interpretation went a different route in some sense, but it's more or less the same thing. You see, in this case, Momoshiki says Boruto strongly inherited the powers of the Otsutsuki in response to Boruto using the Jougan, which we know stems from the Otsutsuki since Oroshiki identified it when he first fought them in the Sand Village. This then simply means that the Jougan isn't some new dojutsu that was created specifically for Boruto. It's an existing dojutsu that the Otsutsukis are familiar with. And if Momoshiki says Boruto strongly inherited the powers of the Otsutsukis in response to seeing it, that simply means that it stems from the Otsutsukis themselves. Even so, what Momoshiki didn't know at that time was that there's another mechanic in the universe that he hadn't accounted for, which was of course the other side of Boruto's genetics, that being his Uzumaki lineage. Now you guys are probably saying that the main factor is his Otsutsuki genetics, so whether he gets it from the Uzumaki or the Hyuga side is totally irrelevant. So when Momoshiki says that Boruto strongly inherited the powers of the Otsutsuki or carries some Byakugan blood, it should encapsulate everything, which is true to some extent. You see, Boruto should technically still carry the Byakugan blood even if his mother wasn't from the Hyuga clan. That's mainly because his father Naruto is a descendant of Hagoromo Otsutsuki, which means that even though Naruto's bloodline didn't inherit the Byakugan itself, they still possess the blood of the Otsutsuki. So it's similar to how you can have an Uchiha who possesses the blood of an Uchiha but not the ability to awaken a Sharingan, which then simply means that having the blood doesn't necessarily mean that you will awaken the dojutsu associated with it. You can even use Boruto as a prime example. Even while having the Hyuga blood, he doesn't possess the Byakugan, and even though he later awakens the Jougan, it's still in one eye. So the logic tracks in that sense as well. Now what doesn't make sense is the fact that 80% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel. So if you guys are enjoying the content, drop a like and subscribe to the channel to help me out in the algorithm. By the way, we also talk about anime in our Discord server, so if you guys want to join in on the discussion every single day, consider joining using the link pinned in the comments. With that said, let's get into the video. Now the point I was trying to make here is that something special happened with Kaguya and her children. One of them had the ability to use the Byakugan while the other one awakened the Sharingan, which later evolved into Renegons. This is really important since it implies that her power wasn't copied and pasted into her offsprings, it was instead divided. So Hagoromo inherited the Reni Sharingan, which separated into two distinct dojutsus for some weird reason, while Hamura inherited the natural born Byakugans. This process of division was also then replicated in the sons of Hagoromo as well, where you pretty much had Ashura inheriting the physical body and was granted enhanced stamina and physical energy, while Indra inherited his eyes in the form of the Sharingan, which granted him chakra powers and mental energy. So same bloodlines, but they both inherited different things. Now this then leads up to another mechanic which involves merging those divided bloodlines. That's how Madara was able to awaken the Renegon by implanting Hashirama's cells into his body. Hashirama was a descendant of Ashura and was also his reincarnate, while Madara was a reincarnate of Indra and also his descendant. These cells coming together caused those two bloodlines to merge, thus manifesting the power they stemmed from, that being Hagoromo's. That's why Boruto's other side is very important in this case, since he's not just merging the blood of Hagoromo's sons, he's merging the blood of Kaguya's children, that being Hamura and Hagoromo. This was actually hinted at in chapter 10 when Kurama mentioned that Himawari having those two bloodlines is likely why she has a higher affinity to his chakra, which is also likely the reason why he was resurrected inside her body. This makes perfect sense since Kaguya merged with the Ten Tails, which was then used to create Kurama and the other tail beasts. So Himawari awakening Kaguya's chakra by combining the bloodline of her two sons would then explain why her chakra resonates with Kurama's, since his chakra is partly Kaguya's. The same would of course apply to Boruto, in that he also awakened Kaguya's chakra, whilst also inheriting more power from the Otsutsuki gene itself. By the way, this also explains the Jougan's manifestation as well. Now this part is a bit sciencey, but it's important for you guys to hear, so don't click off the video, okay? Just bear with me for a second. So there's this thing called recessive inheritance, which is when a genetic trait skips a generation but appears in another generation. In this type of inheritance pattern, a person must inherit two copies of the gene, one from each parent, in order to express a specific trait. So if a person only inherits one copy of the gene, they're considered a carrier of the trait but won't show any symptoms. The trait may then skip a generation before appearing in the offspring of two carriers who each possess a copy of the gene. An example of this would be the Uzumakis, who are known for their luscious red hair, but then you have Naruto, who doesn't possess this genetic trait, and that's because he only received one copy of the gene from his mother, since his father isn't an Uzumaki. Aside from that, we also have a thing called incomplete penetrance, which is a term used in genetics to describe a situation in which an individual inherits a genetic mutation that is caused by a certain trait or disorder, but at the same time the individual doesn't express or exhibit the trait or disorder. In other words, the presence of the mutation doesn't always result in the manifestation of the associated phenotype. For example, if a genetic mutation is known to cause a particular autosomal disorder and the penetrance of the mutation is incomplete, it means that not all individuals who inherit the mutation will develop the disorder. So let's say that the incomplete penetrance of this mutation is estimated to be 80%. This means that 80% of the individuals who inherit the mutation will develop the disorder, while the remaining 20% will not. So in the Jougan's case, it's possible that the penetrance level of this gene is less than 10%, which means that only less than 10% of the people who possess the gene will manifest the Jougan. This would explain how Boruto can have this power while the other descendants of Kaguya or Kaguya herself wouldn't possess it. So as I've said on multiple occasions, Boruto won the genetic lottery, and due to that, a lot of stuff just came naturally to him. In chapter 1, he even states that without any training whatsoever, he was able to use 3 shadow clones right off the bat, along with wind style, lightning style, and even water style. These are things Shinobi prior to him had to train for years in order to attain. But then you had this child who was able to do it on his first try. It seems a bit contrived. Now this wasn't the case in every single instance. The Rasengan, for example, was the first time Boruto was ever challenged, because it was something a bit more complex in comparison to what he had done before. As Sarada herself points out, it's a miracle that Boruto made it this far, which implies that he doesn't normally put much effort into his trainings, and mostly implies that he normally relies on his innate prowess. The thing with this is that there's always a limit to where that alone can get you. You still need to nurture it in order to unlock your full potential. Frieza from Dragon Ball Z is a prime example of this. He was born with such immense power in comparison to everyone else around him that he hadn't trained a single day in his life. But after losing to Goku, he then decided to train for only 4 months and was able to attain a power level rivaling a version of Goku who is at least 1,000,000 times stronger than the one he lost to. This is what happens when you nurture innate talent, which is exactly what Boruto did when he decided to actually train for the very first time, thus quickly gaining the ability to use the Rasengan. Now this mentality didn't last. His resolve was weak at this time, so when Sasuke lobbied the slightest bit of criticism in regards to the size of his Rasengan, he threw a tantrum and he left. This then caused him to immediately regress to the mentality that he had before, since to him training didn't yield the results he wanted. That state of mind then left him vulnerable, which was swiftly acted upon by Katasuke. You see, he's a scientist who pretty much wants to get his technology out there and sought Naruto's permission to have the kids use them during the exams, but Naruto rejected the idea. He believes that the exam should be a show of your true strength and growth for the young ninjas, not a place for spectacle. However, Katasuke was later revealed to be under the effects of genjutsu, so it was compelled to find a way to get it in there regardless. Boruto was of course an easy target for all of the reasons I mentioned before. So when Katasuke was able to perform a perfect Rasengan using the scientific ninja tool, he couldn't resist taking one for himself. Now just to clarify, this isn't a recap of Boruto's entire life story. I'm also just laying the premise for my argument behind Boruto's varying power level throughout the entire series. Now Boruto was initially reluctant to use the device at first, as seen in the first exams where he decided to fall into the pit and lose instead of cheating using the ninja tool. However, this then changed during the second exams because he had finally gotten the modicum of attention he so desperately wanted from Naruto due to passing the first examination. So he couldn't allow himself to lose, that wasn't an option. So instead of accepting defeat, he secured the win using jutsus Katasuke had stored in the ninja tool for him. Now this of course didn't last, since in the battle versus Shikadai, Boruto through pure desperation decided to pop the multi-shadow clone jutsu with just one hand, which is absolutely insane for a kid his age, even a prodigy like himself. So of course Naruto caught on. Now you guys know the story. Momoshiki attacked, blew up the stadium, Naruto got captured, blah 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 blah. Okay, cool. So Boruto finally sees his father's true power and remembers Sasuke telling him that Naruto overcame all of his shortcomings using his own strength. And this of course is a catalyst for him rejecting the scientific ninja tool, thus discarding it. This led to Boruto asking Sasuke what Naruto did in times like this, which Sasuke replied to by rhetorically asking if he now wants to learn and know. Then said perhaps Boruto has started to overcome some of his weaknesses. He also affirms Boruto's own strength by telling him that he's a strong ninja, to the point where he could even surpass Naruto if he puts his mind to it. Once again pointing out that he is Naruto's son, but also now Sasuke's student. All of this led to the moment where all the Kages along with Sasuke were pinned down by Momoshiki, so Boruto had no choice but to believe in his own power and act, which allowed him to knock over a powered up evolved Momoshiki, thus freeing them from the shadow paralysis. That's when Naruto, through seeing Boruto's true potential for the first time, asked him to make another one, then added his own chakra, thus making Boruto's Rasengan even bigger and stronger. That's when once again Sasuke's words started to resonate with Boruto. Naruto worked hard and relied on his own strength, but exactly how much training did it take to get here? What did he go through for it to get this heavy? This was a true turning point for Boruto as he finally understood what it takes to attain true power. Boruto then proceeded to maneuver around this powered up Momoshiki, which is actually hilarious. You guys know my take on this already, and he literally overpowered him with the Rasengan amplified by Naruto. Now I want you guys to understand that this is evolved Momoshiki, who had just consumed the chakra pills he made by absorbing half of the Nine Tails chakra, along with the chakra he absorbed from Katasuke's ninja tool, which he then used to heal his body from all prior damages. So this kid Boruto being able to finesse Momoshiki by maneuvering around him and even pushing him away by using a Boruto Stream amped punch is absolutely insane. This was all done absent of Jougan, by the way, so he wasn't using any mysterious dojutsu amplification. With that being said, the Rasengan feat is even more insane because while the Rasengan itself is mostly Naruto's chakra, Boruto is the one who pushed that Rasengan into Fuse Momoshiki, thus destroying him. Without that strength and power, Momoshiki would have forced that Rasengan back into Boruto, similar to what Majin Buu was doing to Goku's Spirit Bomb before Goku's power got restored. Now some will call this a mental amp, which is true in a sense, but I believe that mental amps only bring out your true power, not power you would have otherwise never attained. That being said, everything I've said so far only accounts for Boruto's base power. We haven't even gotten to the different stages of the karma, and by different stages I mean karma V1 and karma V2. Now this part should be pretty easy since it's just an additive. You're pretty much stacking Momoshiki's power onto base Boruto's power, which we've already established was above Jougan's. So you're pretty much stacking a power that's at best relative to adult 6-path Sage Mode Naruto, which is a lot of power by the way. And look, I know some viewers or fans believe that Momoshiki is just stronger than Naruto at full power, but he really isn't. Especially when you take into account his feats against a heavily fatigued Naruto that had half of Kurama's chakra removed after already tanking the attack at the stadium, which simply means that he had less than half of Kurama's power when he fought Momoshiki. So yeah, it is stated that Naruto and Sasuke needed to team up in order to defeat him, but it's referring to the versions of them that fought him, who weren't at full power, so it's really very simple. That aside, the power increase would be massive no less, and would likely bring Boruto to way above Ishiki levels of power. Now this part is somewhat of a theory, but I also believe that Boruto makes Momoshiki stronger, but not in the conventional sense. More so that Boruto's genetics serves as an amplifier to Momoshiki's power due to a thing called resonance. Yes, this might sound familiar since it has been mentioned in Boruto's manga multiple times, but more so in reference to the Karma Seal. Now to lay it out in a more digestible way, let's put it like this. The Karma Seal is stated to be an highly compressed Otsutsuki backup file, and I know you guys are probably tired of hearing me say this, but it's really important, okay? So once the file itself is implanted into a prospective vessel, the compressed data slowly extracts over time, and once all of that data is fully extracted, the Otsutsuki will then fully resurrect within that body and the person will cease to exist. So the concept itself is pretty simple. Now this is relevant in Boruto's case since he possesses Momoshiki's Karma Seal, which means he possesses Momoshiki's data and chakra. And data of course means genetic data. Now where resonance comes into play is when Boruto interacts with or is in the vicinity of Kawaki, who possesses the Karma Seal of Ishiki Otsutsuki. The first time we saw this phenomenon was when Boruto first met Kawaki in chapter 25, I believe. We first see Kawaki's hands start to shake, and then Boruto immediately started to feel the sensation as well. It's then revealed that both Kawaki and Boruto have activated the Karma Seal, which had begun to spread across their bodies. Boruto himself says it feels like something is flowing into him, which is likely referring to Momoshiki's power triggered by the activation of Kawaki's Karma Seal. This is later confirmed by Kashin Koju, who said that the two karmas are definitely resonated with each other. This phenomenon went on to play out multiple times later on as well. The second time this happened was when Boruto and Kawaki had a brief brawl, which ended up triggering their Karma Seals at the same time. Now the third time this happened, it was more intentional than accidental since Kawaki purposefully activated his Karma Seal in hopes that it would trigger Boruto's, which worked out perfectly. It's once again pointed out that the Karma Seals are indeed resonating, to the point where Momoshiki's presence itself surfaces after Boruto did his Yuzen sign with Kawaki. Not only that, Kawaki is shown to be able to make Boruto stronger by purposefully resonating his karma with Boruto's, as seen in their battle versus Boru. So at this point, the evidence itself is very clear that they are indeed resonating, and resonating does make them stronger. But the real question is, why? Why does the karma resonate and why does it make them stronger? Well, that's because the writer wanted that to be the case, of course, but there has to be a deeper mechanic that makes it possible. Now, I believe that this mechanic is the Otsutsuki data within the karma seal itself. You see, the honest truth is that we know nothing about the Otsutsukis, especially when it comes to how they came into existence and what their DNA consists of. So them being stronger by resonating with other Otsutsukis can make sense if that's what the writer wants to make sense. So operating under that premise, this explains why the Otsutsukis travel in pairs. Well, of course, in addition to the function of forming chakra fruits, the Otsutsukis are stronger together, and I mean that literally. So in a sense, Boruto, who strongly inherited the powers of the Otsutsuki, likely inherited the ability to resonate with other Otsutsukis and get stronger. By the way, the logic tracks since this resonance doesn't happen with Code's karma seal, since it didn't Otsutsukify his body, thus not having the ability to resonate. Then again, it could also be because he has a defective karma, but of course I'm gonna go with the option that validates my claim, okay? The main point is that Boruto's innate Otsutsuki genetics that he inherited from Kaguya is likely resonating with Momoshiki's, which is why Borushiki seems stronger than he should be. But of course, this is just a theory, a game theory. I'm just kidding, guys. I don't know why I did that, but yeah. Thoughts on the video, guys. Do you think it makes sense? I could go further. I wanted to expound on the code point as well, because I said there's added context, and the added context there was that while Code did use the karma seal and Boruto didn't use his, we have to remember that Rasengan Uzuhiko is kind of new and we have no idea what the full effects on a body is, especially in the case that Boruto mentioned that he was halfway there. So it could be that Code was just under the effects of Rasengan Uzuhiko, which allowed Boruto to get the feats that he did, but we're not sure. That's why I said that the added context is there, but of course that's just my kind of way of like analyzing stuff in a way where it makes sense, you know? You guys can disagree, but of course let me know your thoughts on the overall video. Do you think it makes sense? This is why Boruto is so strong, because of this innate Otsutsuki power that's within his body. Do you think it makes sense? If not, let me know why in the comment section. Also guys, remember, join the Discord. I'm tired of telling you guys are here watching the content, why not join the Discord? And it makes sense to do it because for some reason YouTube isn't sending out notifications to most of my viewers. I'm getting multiple comments about this, but if you guys are in the Discord, you guys will get the notification once I post the video. Just have on your notifications on Discord and you will receive it. So that's a good way to just keep update on the channel. So you guys, it's awesome being here. Congrats to everyone who supports the channel and me, of course, for getting to 25k. You guys have been amazing. But yeah, I really appreciate it. With that being said, guys, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.